Hello? There it is. Good morning, everyone. It is really nice to be able to see so many great faces here today. Thank you so much for coming into this wintry wonderland. I know many of us had struggles, so it is really a treat to see all of you here. So welcome. Welcome to all of you, our new and enduring partners, our distinguished guests. My name is Megan Paone. I am the program manager for the Military Spouse Employment Partnership. I am also an active duty Army spouse who, for better or worse, knows the heartache of losing meaningful employment, but also the immense joy of landing it and being able to maintain it. Also, for better or worse, you will see me emceeing a good portion of this meeting. So please adjust your expectations accordingly, okay? And let's hope I can keep my employment after we adjourn. I have my colleague here, Josie Beets, with me. She is the program manager for the Spouse Education and Career Opportunities program, and I am thrilled to work alongside her, and you will be seeing her, much of her this over the next day and a half as well. So thanks so much. Okay, a little housekeeping. You are officially encouraged to stay on your phone, provided you are using the Whova event app to participate in live polls, asking questions to panels, connecting with the person three rows back, and just overall networking. There's a caveat to this. If we catch you TikToking, or worse, we hear the Microsoft Teams ring, you will be the very first person to ever do an icebreaker for this meeting. Okay? All right. Our special thanks goes to Mr. Dondero, Comcast NBC Universal, Guidehouse, and Humana. Without their financial support, lunch would be very expensive. So we really appreciate all of their support and as partners and at the MSEP too. So thank you all very much for your support. This year marks our 15th year of the Military Spouse Employment Partnership. 15 years of employers creating a positive impact for military spouses, actively seeking professional growth, financial security, and an opportunity to do something meaningful for themselves. MSEP has grown from 50 partners to over 1,000, offering all types of employment across all types of industries. Yet there is so much work to be done. And to further help the mission for the next 15 years, for your own workforce development, and to help a military spouse find a career, you joined at a very exciting time. Oh, and we're missing some things. Excellent. So, to further though, while you're in attendance at this meeting, I'm going to ask you to think about a couple of things and do a couple of things. I want you to think how MSEP can better support you. Along with that, what kind of relationship do you want with MSEP? And how can this mutual relationship support each other? And then also, how does this annual meeting support the relationship that you want to have? Additionally, use this meeting as a networking tool. Reach out to others to connect and share best practices, lessons learned, and learn how other programs have started and evolved. And I think that's a really important word, evolved, because no one gets it right the first time. This is going back a very long time. But when I was getting my first job out of college, I reached out to my parents' alumni classes and networked with them in the industries that I wanted to be in. So the same can be applied here. Look to the classes that came before you and ask them what worked and what didn't. So We can change the next slide. Let's see if that works. Oh, there it goes. Hooray. When I think about 2025, 3 headlines come to mind. We saw unprecedented change and we adapted. 2, we curated stronger programming. And 3, we set the stage for our next era, and it's gonna be awesome. I just wanna say that, it's gonna be awesome. And these aren't just phrases. They're the story of how we navigated a year of significant challenges and opportunities, and we prepared for what's next. In 2025, we navigated everything from policy shifts to a reduction in force, and we also got new priorities. In the face of these changes, we had to work smarter and harder. We learned to prioritize, focusing on what was truly in our wheelhouse. One thing remained a constant, though: our laser focus to support military spouses maintain and secure meaningful employment. Above all, we committed to constant communication with each other, ensuring programmatic follow-through and continued collaboration with industries and partners just like you. Even in the midst of change, we didn't just keep going, we improved. We anticipated challenges and we got better. We expanded our impact by creating additional coaching packages for military spouses, helping them prepare for the career opportunities emerging from the AI boom. We developed new educational pathways in Udemy, opening doors for spouses to pursue more tech-based careers and build on-demand skills. And we also strengthened our outreach and support systems, ensuring these resources weren't just available, but accessible, relevant, and tailored to the spouses who needed it the most, and to our employer community. By continuing to evolve and curate programming, we are providing the support our audiences need. It also means more spouses could confidently take the next step in their professional journey. In 2025, we dedicated the year to preparing for one of our most ambitious initiatives yet: the migration of the military spouse career opportunity, or the military spouse career accelerator pilot to a permanent program of record at the department. The launch of the career accelerator was one for the books. Every decision, every collaboration, every refinement was made with this milestone in mind. Even when faced with the disruption of a shutdown, our team stayed focused and on track. We adapted timelines, reworked plans, and kept moving forward. By the year's end, we weren't just ready, we were energized, aligned, and positioned to deliver a program that offers employers an opportunity to bring on talent paid for by the Department of War for 12 weeks and shape the careers of military spouses for years to come. So what does this all mean? Let's take a look at the numbers. Because behind every headline, there's a data point waiting to show off. We all know this. So, in 2025, 168 new businesses and organizations committed to supporting military spouses and families. That was out of 180 completed applications. So we had 12 folks who couldn't quite commit, and that's fine. We totally get it. It's just not the right time. And this slow and steady growth is deliberate and steady. We are proud of how we've been able to sustain partners for so long, and this speaks volumes to how we deliver services to our employer partners. We've also seen a tangible increase in partner activity. Partner logins are up by 12%, which tells us that partners are more engaged than ever. There's also always room for improvement, just like the Army says, always room for improvement. So, and that's a complete nudge, maybe a shoulder jab or elbow jab. But with these logins, our partners are busy looking for their next talent hire. Employers conducted 32,516 candidate searches in 2025. And so, for those of you who reported your hires, thank you. You are the heroes. Even if you report a 0, we have an idea of what your workforce cycle looks like. And we know that you are keeping military spouse talent on top of mind, and that is huge. And so now I am going to introduce my lovely colleague, Josie Beets, who runs SECO.
Thank you. I thought she was going to say my lovely assistant for a minute.
I almost wanted to.
It's going to be amazing. I am. I just do what Meg tells me. Good morning. My name is Josie Beets. I'm the program manager for the Spouse Education and Career Opportunities program. I am also an Army spouse. Army's taking over, per usual. And I'm really excited to talk to you today about the spouses behind the program. Next slide. We are obviously, at our core of our mission is the service of spouses and their career trajectories, right? We do this through 3 ways. We help spouses find jobs, we give them high quality career advice, and we help them explore education as it relates to their employment and career. Last year, I overwhelmed you with a whole bunch of slides about the data because I was so excited about it. This year, I'm trying to keep it to this one slide. It was very difficult, but the story that we tell here is really, really important. This is your talent pool, okay? First of all, in those little red slides, those are sort of our demographics, right? So 48% of the spouses who use the SECO program are Army spouses. That's right. I think that was Holly. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. The next level down, right, because I know somebody's going to ask me later, is Air Force at 22%, and then Navy at 20%. We even have a handful of Space Force spouses who participate. Thank you, Erin. And so we have reach. Not only that, about 10% of all of the spouses that come to the SECO program are Guard and Reserve spouses. They're in any status, right? And so if you're Guard and Reserve in any status, you can participate in the SECO program and use our services. There's a little caveat when it comes to our MyCAA scholarship funds with that. You have to be in a certain status, blah, blah, blah. But we're really excited to serve that community. We want to see that number increase because we know our Guard and Reserve families have different challenges than our active duty military spouse family. What else do I have on? Okay, so highly educated spouses. This is something we talk about a lot, so I know it's not news to you, but I did want to bring you the data point, right? 61% of the spouses who use the SECO program have their bachelor's degree or higher. And so, when we talk about the talent pool, I think that's about 12 points higher than the civilian sector writ large. So we do have a talent pool that is more educated. And most of the spouses that come to us are sort of in that junior enlisted, E1 to E6 framework. If you add junior officer spouses to that percentage, that goes up to 77%. And so when we talk about who we serve and the services we're bringing to them, that is our primary audience that we're looking at. And part of what you'll hear today is how we're adjusting some of what we're doing, through the Career Accelerator, through other initiatives to direct spouses to careers that work for them today. And then I wanted to share a few of the big numbers from our program. Our website had 6 million page views. Our job searches were up about 29%. I can't quite see. Yeah, from last year, which is fantastic. Our team did almost 160,000 engagements with spouses. That's everything from a career coaching appointment to that spouse's participation in a job fair or sitting down at a table with us at an outreach event. We had 44,000 unique spouses log into our MySECO website, which, again, was an increase of about 40% over last year. And I want to say about 60% of those were spouses that were, 40% of those were spouses who were new to the program. And so that is a number we track because, as I like to say, military spouses are a renewable resource. There's always more of them. And we always have a communication challenge in reaching those new spouses and reaching those new members of this great talent pool for you. Our team attended 83 events with over 11,000 attendees last year. That does not count the events that we put on ourselves, which are those, virtual hiring fairs, the entrepreneurship symposium that we did last fall. And then across all of these services, we have a 99.8% satisfaction rate. We actually ended the year with 100% satisfaction rate. And that isn't like 6 out of 40,000 spouses who participated. We have a survey response rate of about 10 to 15%, depending on the month and depending on our volume. And so we're really proud of that, and we're really dedicated to maintaining that high level of quality as we shift, as we move forward. And so again, Meg and I love talking about these data points. We track them very, very closely. They are the definition of our success, but we also know they are not enough and that there is more to be done. I think that just like the military spouses are a renewable resource, the work that we have to do is a renewable resource. It is always changing and it's always moving forward. And that's why it's so great to be in fellowship with all of you over the next couple of days. And it's another reason why I'm really excited to introduce our next speaker, who's going to give us some opening remarks. Mr. Stephen B. Simmons is the Deputy Assistant Secretary of War for Military, Community, and Family Policy. In this role, he champions critical initiatives that directly support the well-being and resilience of military families and communities worldwide. His leadership is instrumental in shaping policies that ensure our service members and their families thrive. We are grateful for his commitment and leadership on military spouse employment. Mr. Simmons.
All right, well, good morning, everyone. Anybody still snowed in? It took me 15 minutes just to get out of my neighborhood this morning. It was pretty terrible, and that snow has turned to snowcrete, and it is more PT, just shoveling a couple of bricks of snow than anything I got in the Marine Corps. So it's been a lot of fun. But hey, everyone, thank you so much for being here. First off, I want to start out, let's talk about diamonds. How are diamonds formed? Pressure, exactly. And they're formed under pressure in the hottest, most inhospitable conditions, and they form, and they are, to this day, the most prized jewel that you can receive. Not because they were formed in easy conditions, they were formed under the worst conditions, and because of that, they are known for their beauty and brilliance. The higher the pressure, the more brilliant and radiant a diamond is. Similar to this, in shifting gears, let's talk about employers making hiring decisions. Do you hire a candidate who has had it easy, maybe has a bunch of degrees, but has waltzed through life and really has never faced any adversity? Maybe you might take a chance on them, but that's automatically, when you are having those employment decisions, you're going to say that's a high-risk decision right there. Or do you choose the candidate that has faced adversity, stared down challenges, and come out on the other side and been successful? That is our military spouse population. And so, I want to talk about this. Our military spouses, they're forged in hardship. They have to have a high, emotional intelligence, and it's not a luxury, it's a necessity to succeed as a military spouse. They move all the time. They are faced with, long periods of time and unknowns where their spouse is not there. You don't know if your spouse is going to deploy tomorrow or not. So there's just all kinds of varying indecision, and they have to make snap decisions for not just themselves, but their entire family and their future. These are the employees you want. And I would argue that as we look at this AI-driven world where there's so much automation, having that employee with high emotional intelligence, high judgment, and a understanding of the human condition is exactly what you want. And that's why we're here today. I think everybody would agree. That's why everybody in this room is committed to hiring military spouses and make it important, because it's not a charity. As much as we feel good about hiring a military spouse, it's a solid business decision. And we're going to talk about this at length throughout this conference, but I want to shift the narrative significantly. If we look back in 2010, Forbes came out with an article and said, the best business decision you can make is hire a veteran. Overnight, the narrative changed from companies making charitable decisions to hire a veteran coming back from a war to seek these veterans out, find them, hire them, because we need the next generation of leaders. And to this day, veteran unemployment has steadily dropped and been a success story, mostly because the narrative shifted back 15 years ago. We have to start doing that with our military spouses. That is the period. End all be all. This is not charity. This is a good business decision. I think all of you know that. I think you've experienced that success, but we have to be shouting this from the rooftops, and we are going to shift the narrative this year. That is what we're going to do. So let's talk a little bit. Spouse employment, it can directly inform a service member. This is a strategic imperative. Service members choose to enter and enlist in the service. They raise their right hand, and it's usually an individual decision. They say, I'm going to join. I'm going to raise my right hand and join. 4 years later, most of them, when they make the decision to stay in, it is not a service member decision. It's a family decision. And that spouse has equal, if not more say than the service member themselves. Trust me, I know it. I think I'm hearing some giggles out there. And there's nothing more fearsome than a Marine than perhaps a Marine spouse. And, and y'all know what I'm talking about. And so it's a family decision. And a big part of that is spousal employment. When you ask a spouse to put their life on hold and stop realizing their dream, that is a sacrifice that few are willing to make, and even fewer continue to make year after year, 4 years, 8 years, 12 years, 20 years, 28 years. It goes on and on. So I view this is not just a job program and hire a spouse because it's good business decision for you, but it's also an imperative for the department. We have to retain our military talent, but that means we have to make the case not to just the military member, but to the spouse and the family. And a big part of that is giving them the chance to succeed in their career as well, and supporting them in that career, because it's going to make our military stronger. It's going to improve the financial stability of our troops, because, surprise, in 2025, both spouses have to have an income to thrive. And that is an economic reality, and we have to support that. Let's talk about, though, what we're looking at right now. MSEP is prioritizing spouse employment, and we want to move the needle on this. And this needle has not moved for a long time. It has been absolutely stagnant. It gets stuck at about 20%. 10 years ago, it was at 25%. We've knocked it down about 5 percentage points. It fluctuates right around 20% right now. There's a lot of barriers to dropping that further that we're well aware of, and we'll talk about this at length. But what we see is it is stuck at 20%. How do we move the needle? And we're going to commit to moving the needle. This is not talk. We're going to drop it 5%. We're going to drop it down to 15%. And that's going to be a lot of commitments from us on the Department of War side. It's been commitments from you. It's been commitments from all of society. But I think this is absolutely important, and I think we can do it together. Now, it's more critical than ever. In the current security environment, it's shifted drastically in the last 5 years. If we think about the national security environment, the world in which we live, 5 years ago, we were still in GWAT. We were deploying troops on a very regular cycle, usually 180 days or to 365 days out. You knew that unit is going to go deploy, and you could start working with them to deployment proof that unit. And you started doing family readiness. The reality now is you can go to bed and wake up tomorrow, and guess what? We are at war. That is the security environment we are in. And because of that, we have to get our family readiness, our military readiness, our overall readiness, we have to get it up to 100%. It has to be there. It has to be ready to go now. And so part of this is we have to get our spouses employed and have them have solid employment, not at certain key times, 2 years after a PCS. We have to have them employed there now. National Defense Strategy. It calls for a reinvigoration of the industrial base. In World War II, our industrial base was driven by the military spouse. They were the unsung heroes of World War II because it was them that showed up to the factories. It was them that showed up and kept our economy humming and allowed us to defeat our enemies in World War II. This is us reinvigorating the industrial base. We are going to ensure that our military spouses, once again, can join the workforce and stay gainfully employed. And whether that's a factory or a child care facility or a corporate career or even just keeping the local economy alive in the thousands of small businesses that make this nation great. That's where we're going to put our spouses. All right, where are we? All right. Now we talked about the 20%. That 25% number, that was from an active duty spouse survey in 2012. So over 15 years ago, really 15 years ago, we've moved the needle 5%. That's incredible. What we know, PCS moves significantly increase unemployment risk. Spouses who complete a PCS move in the last year, they have an unemployment rate of 30%. And it's 136% higher odds of unemployment. So we know that spouse unemployment is tied directly to PCS. There's lots of problems out there. We've talked about it. I think we've all acknowledged these problems in conferences past. We've talked about it a little bit here today, and we know there's challenges all over the place. But what we've not really talked about are solutions. And this is where I think we're going to be differing in our approach this year, and we're going to change how we do things because we're going to be laser focused on developing solutions. This is why, and this is the first big announcement that's going to be coming out of this conference, but there's going to be many, many more announcements coming in the next few months. We're going to be changing the narrative on how we approach self-employment. The first point that we're going to change is we're going to stand up a new directorate that's going to be reportable directly to me. And I'm proud to announce Ms. Erin Wagnon, who was my chief of staff, is no longer my chief of staff, but now the new director of the Office of Spouse Employment for the Department of War. So Erin, as many of you know her, is absolutely aggressive. She's a problem solver. She's a risk taker, but she is the best and only individual right for the job. A military spouse herself, both Army and now Space Force. She lives a life. She's at PCS risk. Erin, I'm still struggling on that one, but we're gonna support you every step of the way. But I think Erin is the woman for the job. She is going to crush it. We're all going to get behind her, but I think she's going to lead this spouse employment initiative to where it has to go, where it must go. So, Erin, congratulations. Erin, stand up. Yeah, stand up. And Erin, you're going to post that on LinkedIn. That's going to be the best single job change announcement ever, live going on right now. All right. Now, I'm going to get into this at length during my breakout, but this is not a talking point. We have to be holistic. It's not, hey, we're going to drop this 5% and we're creating an office. There's a holistic approach that we're developing right now, but we're going to look at this on multiple lanes. And as I talk through this, just think about where you can fit in, where you can support. But we have to be holistic in our solutions. We have to look at not just outside the government, we have to look internal to the government. We have to look at our policies. We have to look at society. How do we support this? So I'm going to throw some concepts out here of really kind of where we're going, and we'll talk more about this at length in the future. But we have to PCS-proof the jobs. We have to PCS-proof childcare. How many spouses PCS and then say, you know what, I'll start looking for a job when I have the kids in a good child care system? 6 months later, and I see some hands raised, y'all know this, 6 months later, and then December from the January that next year, hey, we finally got the kids in a good daycare, I'm gonna start looking for a job. So we have to PCS-proof that. We have to PCS-proof the child care piece, but we also have to PCS-proof the job. And that, what does that mean? That means jobs need to be permeable, they have to be transferable, not just remote, although remote's really nice and we love remote. We have to make it where if a spouse PCS is that job, PCS is with them, or ensure there's a mechanism to have a job waiting for them on the other end. And those are some best practices that you, the employers, have picked up on and done. So we have to figure out how to scale this across the entire Department of War and the private sector. We have to make the Department of War the model employer. I'm going to say sometimes we make things more difficult on ourselves than it needs to be, but if we're going to ask you as employers to step up your spouse hiring, guess what? We need to do it ourselves. And so I'm proud to announce I'm working closely with my counterpart, Mr. Michael Kogar, who is the Deputy Assistant Secretary of War for Civilian Personnel Policy, but we're working hand in hand to change the policies and transform those policies to actually make it easier for a military spouse to PCS, make it easier for them to retain their job, make it easier for them to find a job, and especially overseas, because that's a critical point. But that's an area that we're going to be focused on. I think why we're all here, this next area, develop high impact pathways and partnerships. That's this conference. That's everything MSEP stands for. We're going to continue to work on this and refine this to make sure that there's a pathway when a spouse raises his or her hand and says, I want a job, guess what we're going to do? We're going to have a pathway to get them plugged in and connect them with the right employer and prepare them for that interview, prepare them for that job, make sure they have the skills. Data insights and design. Who here likes data? Woo, all right. I like data too. The hard thing is I don't think we've been as meticulous about our data in many, many years. I think the government's a few steps behind the private sector right now. We're rapidly catching up. But what I want us to be able to do is we have to transform how we approach data, especially around spouse employment. This means, again, holistic approaches, working with other agencies within the government, working with our private sector partners, utilizing the MSEP program, but really get our data to a point where we can not just know what our spouse unemployment number is, but predict our spouse unemployment number 6 months out. We know when a service member is going to PCS. We usually know 6 months out. We usually know when they're in danger of PCS a year out. Why should we not start working with a spouse at that point in time? All right, and lastly, of course, the strat comms, the brand refresh. Spouse unemployment, like so many other areas in military family, is a cyclic challenge. Just when we solve it for one spouse, just when we solve it for one service member, guess what? We have a new service member entering and a new family entering that we have to take care of. So we're going to have to continue to work the comms piece. I'm looking for everybody to help us out on this one, because what we're going to need is we're going to need to continue to outreach, continue to educate, and make sure people are aware of the resources. The number one issue that keeps me up at night is somewhere there's a military family that is suffering in silence. They're having a challenge. They don't know who to go to for help. They don't even know that there's help. And usually when they finally ask for help, well, hey, there's this great resource that will take care of you and we can help you out. But until we tell them, they don't know. So that's going to be an area that we're going to continue to work on. It's going to be a challenge, but I think together we can all accomplish it. So achieving this goal, we know spouses bring adaptability. 61% of the spouses who have worked with our employment program in the past year have a bachelor's degree or higher. I don't know if anybody knew that or not. Like, I think there's a trend of people thinking, well, military spouses don't have an education. No, they have a bachelor's degree. The ones that don't usually have an associate's degree. They've got some very high-powered licenses that can be immediately applied somewhere. And by the way, we also have programs to get them a bachelor's degree if they want one. So when you're hiring a spouse, again, I'm going to say you're not filling a role. You're bringing that highly versatile team member who's going to be that leader in that next generation. And we'll be rolling out a lot of stories over the next year. You're going to hear about this, but we have military spouses who started out as a bank teller, and now they are, the chief operations officer of a major bank. We have military spouses that started out as a associate, and they are running entire regions of different companies. It's incredible what they have done and they have thrived to do. So we're going to be highlighting that. The last thing, we're going to talk about on our call to action, and by the numbers, we want to move the needle on spouse unemployment by 5%. What does that mean? Last year, MSEP, we hired 31,000 military spouses. We have to double that goal. We have to get to 62,000 this year. That's going to be the goal. That doesn't mean, it's going to be a challenge. We're going to all have to work together, but that doesn't mean go out and try to hire everybody. It means we're going to have to be smart about it, and we're going to have to be strategic. We can retain spouse talent on the backside. And so instead of rehiring the same spouse, let's retain them. In that way, we're not having to chase that number. So we can lower that 62,000 number. But we also have to improve the program participation. So to achieve this, what I'm looking for you all to do, A, commit to hiring. Let's double the number. But B, bring in more partners. We need more MSEP partners. MSEP as a program is about 10%, 15% of the size of many of the other larger veteran hiring initiatives out there. If you look at SkillBridge, we have 10 times the number of companies in SkillBridge that we have as an MSEP partner. It looks very similar. So what I'm calling for all of you to do, bring in 10 more partners. Talk to your friends, your colleagues at the golf course, at the chamber, wherever you interact with your fellow business owners and business leaders. Bring in 10 new partners, encourage them. That doesn't just have to be government. That can be or private sector. That can be schools. It can be government. It could be a nonprofit. Encourage them to come in and join and talk to them about MSEP. It's free. It's the easiest and cheapest pipeline you're going to have. I know how much it costs to advertise for a job on LinkedIn or Zillow, or not Zillow, that's houses. What's the other ZipRecruiter? It costs a lot. MSEP is free. Now we're going to figure out how to make MSEP more effective and easier to manage. We're working through that right now. But get your counterparts out there. Get them to sign up. We would love to have them. If you need help with that, let me know. I know the undersecretary would love to know the secretary. If we need to call somebody and say, hey, we really need you to join MSEP, I'll pick up the phone, call them, and talk to them personally. Just set up the call, work with my office. Lastly, we have to get to a 100% retention goal. And this is going to be the last piece, and this is where we're going to really give MSEP some teeth that is going to make it truly effective. Is if we'll say a dental company on the West Coast in California hires a military spouse via the MSEP program, and they PCS to North Carolina on the East Coast, I guarantee you there's a dental company there that would probably accept that MSEP application and take them. So what we want to do is start to build these partnerships within the MSEP community and commit to not just hiring an MSEP here, but retaining one and saying, you know what, that spouse was good enough for that company over there that's in the MSEP program. They're good enough for me because I'm in the MSEP program too. So we're going to talk about this at length. We're going to work on it. We'll look forward to your partnership on this. But these are my challenges. Again, we have to double our hiring via MSEP. We need to recruit 10 MSEP partners. If you can get more, all about it. And then finally, commit to the 100% retention within the MSEP program. Doesn't mean you have to retain all that because they're going to PCS. Figure out how we're going to retain them when they PCS and get them somewhere else in that MSEP program. And we're going to have a lot of fun with this, though. At the end of the year, we're going to take a look. Next year at this time, we're going to actually be having several awards. We're going to recognize the top performers. If you're that company that's leading the way and setting the standard for everybody else, we're going to recognize you. We want to recognize you when you come to the Pentagon. We'll host you. Come on out. Love to see you. But you are going to get some recognition if you can get that 100%, if you can double that MSEP hiring, if you can set the standard for other companies and government to emulate. So we're excited to have you here. This is going to be a fantastic conference. Today, we're going to be talking about a lot of these issues. We're going to be working together. Bring some coffee, bring a good attitude, but bring that collaborative spirit and that patriotic spirit that I know every one of you have, because we've got to get this right, and the only way we do is get this together. Truly appreciate your service to our country. Truly appreciate what you do for our military spouses. There was nothing like this 20 years ago. Back early days of GWAT, spouse employment was an afterthought. It wasn't even at the forefront. Nobody was talking about this. And if we look at where the military community has come now, it's amazing. I think we can get ourselves over the hill this year. I think we've got the leadership in place within the department. I think we've got the leadership in place in the private sector. I think we've got the leadership in place across the nation. And so I think together we can challenge ourselves, we can push ourselves, and I think we can get this done. So I look forward to seeing you at my breakout session. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow when we induct our new MSEP partners, and can't wait for this great conference. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Well, I hope that you all are as energized as we are for the future of the MSEP program and of spouse employment efforts here in the Department of War. we're really excited for this next discussion because it is also a crucial part of this. It's something we've talked a lot about in the community. And I'm happy to introduce, we'll start with Mr. Peter Shull from Schneider Electric. And yeah, thank you. That's right. And of course, our MC, Meg Paone, to have a really engaging conversation on organizations and how leaders can level up their commitment to creating that PCS-proof employment.
Yes. Thanks. Hi.
Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah.
I can.
Yeah.
Okay.
All
I
right.
have some water because
Thank you.
I am from Florida and I'm currently stationed in Florida. And so this dry weather really got me, guys. I was not expecting that. So
Yeah.
brought you water.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
know.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
This is great. I love the opening remarks there with the Marine. I think he's got me all
Yeah, Mr.
motivated now,
Simmons.
ready to go.
Is he? Who?
Yeah, but
Hoorah.
truly, one thing I would like to say, first of all, it's an honor to be here. I'm happy to see everyone here. And, the last remark there was about collaboration. Schneider Electric, there are no trade secrets about how to get veterans. I mean, we want as many as we can. And we also want those mill spouses. And anything that we've done to that end, I am absolutely willing to share it with anybody in this room. You can call me anytime, day or night. I doze but never close. And I'd be happy to help you out because this is really, truly, and this particular subject here with military spouses is near and dear to my heart. I do believe that this can make a difference to the national security. Gone are the days of the single family income. I think we can all agree to that. Being in the military, as you well know, is very difficult for military spouses to find that meaningful employment. I mean, there's employment out there, but not meaningful. If employers can step up and help, bring back those careers to spouses, I think that we can actually make a difference in retention of our military forces. I was a commander in the military, and again, like was said before, the number one reason for people leaving, family.
Yeah, exactly. And perfect way to open up. Lisa Henderson, who is with Oracle, was unable to make it this today. So we will have her speak to how she got some policy implemented over at Oracle. But it was a marathon, slow and steady. And her insights are really interesting and really valuable. So I want her to be able to connect with you all. So we'll have to have round 2 of this.
Sure,
here.
absolutely.
And I know you won't shy away from that. So I appreciate it. But this is a conversation about highly engaged partners, and you at Schneider Electric are one of those. And grateful that you are here to talk with us about it. So, you mentioned a national security concern and retention of our forces. So let's start with that. It's a pretty softball question. How does an employer's commitment to military spouse career continuity directly impact national security and the home front readiness? And I think home front readiness, it is it means a lot. There's a lot with that, right? Financial security, just being in healthy relationships. And so how do you support that what's the holistic approach for you guys?
So I think first of all, the first thing that I would say is that, having been a military member myself, you kind of go into corporate America with some assumptions, right? Like, well, everybody understands what military life is like. And that's probably the first, the error that I made is that I had to go in there and I had to really kind of explain what is the plight of the military spouse, and then why does that matter? And the reason why it matters, again, we'll go back to, one of the primary reasons, at least in my own experience, having, again, 28 years of talking to folks and, hey, why are you leaving the military? Well, I want to spend more time with my family. So there's a family dynamic going on there. They say, you recruit a soldier, sailor, airman, whatever the case may be, but you retain a family, right? You truly do.
Yes.
And so, as an employer, first of all, if you can educate yourself, and it's an ongoing process with everybody to understand why we need to have these policies that are specific to this one group, right? Because sometimes that's not always favorable. But as people understand, for example, we just had this huge snowstorm go through, right? Well, often military spouses find themselves in places where they don't have that family support network, or they don't even have a whole bunch of friends that they can kind of lean on. And so if they're thinking about or considering employment, that comes into the equation of, hey, can I take on that additional responsibility? And I think that weighs on spouses' minds. So again, if you as an employer can help, again, with the financial and all of that piece, and help that military spouse find some sort of meaningful employment that they can feel secure in, then it's going to have an impact on that family, and hopefully that family can stay, I like to say, stay in service together, right? So
Right.
I think that's probably, what I would say is just the most important impact that we can make.
I think that's excellent impact, right? If you get to a spouse to a new place and you can be a supporting role in any capacity, just the knowledge that you have someone there it takes a lot of pressure off of you, right?
Yeah.
It really does. Man, yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah, I mean, employers don't, I say very generally speaking, an employer is not going to realize that, this military spouse doesn't have a choice, right? They don't have a choice to relocate. It's not up to them. Well, I guess it kind of sort of is up to them. But again, that's the problem, right? That is the problem. And so as you're trying to retain really good folks in the military, right? You want to keep your top, you want to keep your best. Obviously those that are very high performing in the military do have choices, okay? And if the spouse is struggling as well, then that may tip the scale toward them deciding to resign their commission or resign their, not re-enlist and those sorts of things. And I try to encourage those folks to stay in service, because they have, you do 20 years, you gain your retirement, you go on and start a second career. But they won't do that if their family is in jeopardy, and we all understand why. So again, I go back to, it's going to take a lot of internal discussion and communication to make sure that you can do that. And again, let's extend some grace to military spouses. Let's give them special status in society. I think they deserve it. I really do.
That's awesome. What prompted Schneider Electric and the Military and Veterans Affairs team to create the policies that you have and speak to the policies?
Yep.
What was the catalyst? And
so it actually, it
through.
started off with, again, I had to go and find, so Schneider Electric is about 160,000 people globally. In the United States, directly working for the company, we have about 25,000. And I had no idea how many military spouses we had. I showed up to formation. Yes, my veterans showed up there, and then my spouses were somewhere out here. I couldn't, but it's very different than in the military. You just don't have that data. So I had to go out and find them. I found 12 military spouses that were willing to raise their hand and confess that they were military spouses. And self-identify. Because that's a dangerous thing, and we could get into why that is, but I completely understand. But had conversations with them, and I said, what do you think? What is the barrier? What could we do at Schneider Electric? So, in essence, it came from them. They had said that, it would be very helpful and put my mind to rest is if Schneider Electric could have a policy that helped with retention. At least it communicates that retention, but also provides us a little bit of a safety valve if in the event that my spouse gets deployed for 60 or more days, I may need some more time to take care of the house. Whether you have kids or you don't, you have animals, you take on the duties and responsibilities of the home, I may need some extra time. So Schneider said, hey, if that happens, we're going to automatically give you 10 additional days of time off that you can use for that year or the year after. You use it in increments of up to a half day at a time, or as much as you need. And that way, if one of those events happen, then again, you've got that addition, not your normal time off, but legitimately, I need to go do, those things that are caused because someone's deployed away. And again, you're not in that safety, you don't have family nearby, you don't have all these friends that you've developed relationships. So it provides them that opportunity. And then also too, if you PCS and you decide to stay with the company, we'll give you an additional 10 days there. Again, that's 2 weeks. So a week on the front end and the week on the back end. And then we agreed again, with this huge amount of people that would actually use the policy, we said, hey, we'll do it up to 20 days per year. So you can have your 15 days, if you started 15 days of PTO, your 12 days of holidays, and if you need it, you've got this safety net built in up to 20 days to help you out.
Incredible.
Yep.
Incredible. And what was the reception on that?
Actually, that's the other important part of this. You've got to go out and you've got to build those relationships internally. You've got to communicate that story as to why. But actually, it was very well received. I think, again, if you of course, all the financial folks are going to be like, oh, we can't do this. There's all the reasons why. But ultimately, you're talking about a very small population, right? Very small population. And so the vast majority of the folks internal were like, absolutely, let's do this. How do we get this done, right? Now, of course, in a very large company like ours, nothing is ever easy. So it took us up to a year to kind of implement the policy,
Sure.
But had tremendous support from everyone. And I think really, again, it's altruistic in nature, but the ROI is we're going to, one, be able to see more of our population, because now I know you're a military spouse if you use the military spouse leave, right? So I'm going to invite you into the party, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, it's a great attraction tool. At the time, there weren't very many companies that were doing this. There is time off, but there wasn't paid time off.
Right.
Okay,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
it was kind of a unique thing. Schneider had the opportunity to be one of the first to come out and say this. And again, it was a hat tip, so to speak, to the military community and kind of some appreciation.
Yeah.
But certainly, I with the 12 spouses we have now, it's going to be very difficult for them to leave because they're all using this policy.
Yeah. Yeah.
To cover down on those additional burdens.
And when you implemented the policy, did you see other spouses come out and self-identify that had kind of been working there?
Yeah.
Without anyone knowing that they were? Yeah.
So there were a few that came out, but that's probably the other part of this that I've struggled with, and that I didn't think through very carefully in the plan is, hey, what is the campaign to make sure that we're letting everybody know about this great policy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that is something that we continue to do. I have gone into our talent acquisition department. I talk to them. I remind them about these opportunities. Again, but it's an ongoing. I'm gonna say I'm probably a C- maybe in that respect. But I would say if anybody else is considering doing something like this, kind of build that into your plan up front. How are you going to continue to make sure that there's a good marketing campaign, internal and external?
Right. And so did you do an external campaign or
we did.
Okay.
We did. We did some announcements. We did some LinkedIn posts. Our company, obviously, how many people have heard of Schneider Electric by a show of hands? Okay, I feel good. Obviously, the marketing's starting to work. Had I asked this question 3 years ago, probably very few folks would, unless someone's has an electrician in the family or something along those lines. But we don't do a whole lot of marketing. You're not going to see some of the big companies like USAA, who's kind of always echoing this. So very few people know about Schneider Electric, but at every opportunity, I try to get in there and plug that in. As I'm talking veteran stuff, I'm like, hey, mil spouses included. And oh, by the way, there's this awesome, PTO policy, which again, as I think about, the barriers to why military spouses may not want to commit. You don't want to overcommit, right?
Right.
And if we have this policy in place, I think it makes it easier to say, okay, I can take on this responsibility and make a meaningful career and contribute over the long term.
So with the PTO in place for PCSing and for the folks that take advantage of the deployment and so forth, and they relocate, are their jobs portable automatically?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Let's talk about
Yeah.
that.
So it's more. I think that's more a product of the constant conversations we've had over the last 2 years about this particular policy.
Okay.
So that in and of itself, by working this again, I was doing the education. I'm talking to our HR business partners, which are teamed up with all our different various federation of business units that we have. So they all know about the PT policy. And so by virtue of that, that's how, we kind of communicated that internal. Does that answer the question?
That's great.
Yeah.
And has anyone taken advantage of this yet?
Oh, every single one of our 12 spouses has already taken advantage of it.
Oh, that's great.
Yep. And we've had 3 that have relocated.
Okay.
The other thing that came out of that and kind of slipped this in as a bonus, there is the Military Spouse Relocation Act for taxes, right? So if you have, Fort Cavazos, or previously known as Hood, I don't know what it is today, but
it's
is
back
it back
to
to
Hood.
Hood? Okay, Fort Hood. There's a lot of military spouses. Fort Sam Houston, we had a military spouse that came out of there, relocated up here to Virginia. Not so tax friendly, and immediately, the payroll department was like, "Oh, we're gonna have to change your pay," So that's another big one that we got in place. But that
what's the policy in place for that?
Well, the
just
policy,
being able to assist?
we have a policy now that all military spouses will not, they can claim their home record of their military spouse.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but that came out as a function of military spouses taking advantage of the relocation leave.
Okay.
And so that kind of put us onto that one as well. So I think, we talk about, helping with family readiness, and you're just alleviating one more little pressure that you've got when you go through this, nightmare of PCS, right?
Right.
It's enough dealing with all the movers and all of that stuff that then, you've got taxes at end of year and it's madness. But
yes,
at least at Schneider, we've kind of alleviated that as well.
Excellent. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about so far out in the audience? I just want to take a gauge. Yeah, go ahead.
You mean for like a veteran spouse, like previous? Yeah. It's yeah. So, it is for it's Guard and Reserve as well. Okay, so it includes those. Again, the intent is to alleviate pressure due to some sort of government orders, whether it's to deploy, and we very specifically, and I'm glad you brought this up, very specifically, it's operational or combat deployments. So it would include if National Guard and you got activated for one of these domestic deployments and gone for 60 or more days away from it meets the intent. Again, the military spouse is still trying to deal with, taking care of a home and all of those sorts of things. We have not. I tell you, it's an idea. It's certainly something worth considering. Obviously, and that's the other thing I will tell you. It sounds like unicorns and lollipops and rainbows, but we're still working hard to do better with military spouse employment. And so, I'm focused on that for right now. Hopefully someday we can, continue to expand. And that's the other thing I would say is, get this one thing across the goal line, whatever it is that you decide to do in terms of policy. And then from there, things will become easier because you've already had there's a little bit of education that's already taken place as to why we should do this for military spouses and those sorts of things. And then you can try to add policies over time, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks for the
thoughtful question. Yeah. With your headway on the policies, do you plan on expanding? Is there any other policy that you're talking about now that would continue to help support that retention of a military spouse? Or do you think you've set the foundation and you're just, let it settle and see how things go?
There's actually another one that I'm thinking through right now. And it's going to work for both, folks that were transitioning service members, but we get Skill Bridge. We love the Skill Bridge, but we want to use the SECO program with the comparable one. And
the Career Accelerator?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I would love to do, we've ran into an internal issue. Again, I live in a big bureaucracy. I thought I left the Army and that was behind me, but I'm in a bureaucracy again. But in terms of policy, if you're an intern, referrals don't, if someone was referred into the company, you could get upwards of a $3,500 bonus for referring that person into the company. If they were referred into SkillBridge, where they're working for us for free for 3 months, because they're coded as an intern, you're not eligible for that. So one of the things that I'm looking to do, and there may be other companies out there who have a very similar policy because it makes sense, right? You don't give referrals for interns, right? But I'm looking to change that one. There's, I think there's 100 things that I would love to do, but that's the next one, because I think what is most important is that in any program that you have, you start with your small group of military spouses, bring them together, keep that cohesion, keep pulling those ideas together, have as many get-togethers, coffees as you possibly can virtually. But then they're going to feed you with ideas, but then they can also go back out into the community and they can spread the good word, right? They can be that advocate. They can be those sensors out in the field to say, hey, I know another great person that's looking to get into Schneider. Could we potentially bring them in? And if the referrals aren't, a referral bonus would be nice, right?
Yeah.
And so, especially around November, December, actually, any day of the year, right?
That's right.
But, changing that policy, and I've already talked to our VP for talent acquisition, and that's in the works. But that is probably the next big thing that I want to bring to bear in this.
Well, we would love to be updated on those conversations and support in any way.
Are we coming up on time?
We are.
Okay.
Yes.
I actually have a call to action. Again, we have a policy that allows military spouses to take advantage of additional PTO in the event of a 60-day deployment or a PCS. If there's anybody in this audience that would like to work with me, I'd be happy to work with you in getting this policy in your company as well, okay? The more that it could be. And so if I can find 10 people, 10 companies. I would like to see 10 companies. Yeah. It's a very popular number.
It is. 10. It is 10.
If there's 10, if there's 10 companies out there, and again, it's going to take a long time. We're not going to finish this in a week, but I would love to link up with you and help share with you how we did this. Be an advocate, if nothing else, a coach along the way. I'd be happy. Our people internal would be happy to talk to your HR people. And explain the whys of why we did this. But if we could find 10, that would be awesome.
And we will help facilitate those conversations. We would like to have Lisa and you again on a virtual call, so we can kind of kickstart this mentorship program.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that what we want to call it?
Yeah.
But thank you for
thank you.
stepping up and doing that. It's awesome, and I look forward to seeing who's on the roster.
Absolutely.
So, thanks, Peter.
Yeah,
lovely
thank
conversation.
You. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes.
Yep.
Area beautification. Well, I am thrilled. Thank you for that engaging conversation. Thank you for the questions. We are coming up on time, and so are there any questions that we have in general? I'm going to put my...
We have mics coming your way, ma'am.
Oh, great.
I actually had a question for Peter about, like, if we have clients and spouses that are interested in your organization, when they apply, is there like a drop down where they can say, hey, I'm a spouse or I'm a active duty or reservist that was looking for employment, and maybe it highlights them to make sure they have a conversation with their HR team, with your HR team?
I'm sorry, you're talking about
like when they're applying, if they want to join.
When they're applying for at Schneider.
Yeah, and if they are a mill spouse, is there any type way that they can identify so it kind of highlights them because they want to join your company?
One of the things I try to do is encourage them to contact me directly.
Oh, okay.
And actually now they just moved me. About a week ago into talent acquisition. Crazy, right? I've been there for 3 years and they just moved me into talent acquisition. It's the small victories, right? It also hey, it's a long fight. You got to keep at it. You got to be persistent. But they can reach out to me directly, and now I have all the backside access to our hiring platforms. I can put them directly in contact with folks and potential positions that I think would fit.
Wonderful.
Military spouses got to be ready, though, to like maybe take a step back in order to move forward. All of our military spouses have been promoted already. And again, they're high functioning. I work with a business that employed all military spouses and grew the company to eventually take another company off the public market private. It was all military spouses, but anyway, yeah, they can contact me directly, I think is the short answer, for sure, yeah.
Follow-up question from
Sure.
that. What is the timing on that? I'm thinking about, it sounds like we started off imagining like in an application, hey, there's a drop down that says, hey, I'm self-identifying as
Yep.
X, Y, and Z. That's one of the options. Then when you say like they're encouraged to reach out to you directly, is
Yep.
that coming as part of like a recruiter call?
I've got a battle
process?
drill. I've got a battle drill. So the battle drill is they contact me directly with their resume.
Mhm.
I immediately throw that into our tools, and then I send them a booking link, and we're going to have a 30-minute conversation. So, and they can schedule at their convenience. If there's a meeting spot that day, I'd be happy to jump on a call. So I make myself available. My calendar is open to them Tuesday through Thursday. I keep Monday and Friday as spillovers, but they can jump on. And then from that, though, it will generally take about a month if there is something that we have that's lucrative for them to be able to take advantage of.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
It's hard to see. It's hard to see with the lights.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Anybody else?
I don't want to take up her time.
Oh, there's one up there. Go ahead. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I think you said you were at time. I can wait. It's not.
Oh, no, you're fine. You've got 5
Sure.
minutes.
I just had a question about your FMLA policy. I do know that I would love to do what you're doing. I'm a military spouse. I'm coming up on a PCS in the summer. My organization is fantastic. I run the military recruiting program. And I intend to use, as part of that, the FMLA policy, because it is written in FMLA that as a military spouse, you can use that for your spouse's deployments or change of, it's interpretation. Everything in FMLA is interpretation, but you can use it for that. And I'm pushing this similar policy in my company. What pushback did you get about that, if any? Because there is already a standing FMLA policy.
So you're layering on top of it being paid time off, right? And so that's where you get into the conflict. So obviously, the finance folks are going to go through it and they're going to do an assessment. Fortunately, unfortunately, we only had a very small population. So my argument was, hey, look, we're talking out of 25,000 people, a contingency policy, not a, hey, they get automatic 20 days. Oh, by the way, if you ask a military spouse, do they want that 10 days? They say, I'd rather not have it because that means I'm either PCSing or my husband or wife is deploying, okay? So, when I kind of went through that and broke it down in that way, everybody was kind of like, okay, this makes sense. This is not like we're giving 1,000 people additional, 20 days a year. Now I said, this policy was implemented at the beginning of 2025. And so far we've had 12 spouses take advantage of at least 10 days. And again, the reality is it's not a big piece of the organization. So that was kind of how I allayed those fears. Hopefully it becomes a big issue over time. I want to have, 100, 1,000 military spouses. But yeah, for now it was just, due to it's a small population.
And I don't necessarily have a question, more so a comment. I'm Rochelle Chapman with the ADECO Group. I lead all of our military programming. And to the person in the front that asked the question about veteran military spouse employment, we do have a veteran military spouse employment and career development program aptly called It's My Turn. So if you are interested in learning more about that program, please see me at some point during the conference.
Excellent.
I have a question more on the talent acquisition side of things, not necessarily policy. So we're also working on implementing similar additional PTO and time off in our organization. So I will be hitting you up later to discuss that further. But have you seen an increase in your talent pool? As a former military spouse, we talk, right? So like, have you seen that these policies have had a positive impact on like candidate pool and people who are interested in working for your organization?
That's interesting. I can't make a direct correlation, but I can tell you that last year we were just over 8% veteran hiring, which I thought was very interesting. I do talk this with every veteran as well. Even, I tell them, hey, look, this company is even extending, has a PTO policy for even our military spouses. I tell them about the Guard and Reserve, because some people are getting out and they want to continue to kind of serve in the Guard or Reserve, whatever. And I mentioned that as well. So I can't say that there's a direct correlation, but I feel like, if nothing else, it just sticks in people's minds that, wow, they're going out of their way. This must be they really mean it. They want to do something. They are a people-centric organization. So that's my receipts for it too, right? When I say, oh, we're military friendly. Oh, by the way, it's this, and this that makes it. It's the policies.
I had a question. I just really want to keep you standing up, sitting down. I think you touched on this. I wanted to verify. When a military spouse is requiring a PCS and they are relocating to another market that maybe cost of living's higher, did you state that y'all were adjusting their salary for cost of living allowance in a higher cost area, or just covering the tax portion? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Of course, this kind of gets into the negotiation the military spouse is going to have with the employer in terms of, hey, are they going to stay in the same role and now they're just going to go fully remote, which has been the case most of the time. But to answer your question directly, there is nothing tied in our policy that we're going to automatically do an increase. And really, the whole conversation about retention has been a byproduct of the conversation about, hey, we want to help military spouses with this leave that helps them stay in the company. And I would tell you this too, having your SVP for HR say that military spouse is an important issue sends a very clear message to the entire HR community. And that's how I got a lot of good support. It was the conversation directly with the SVP. And they make these comments, and the next thing you know, everybody's helping you out. So that's maybe another little tactic that you could use as you're going back and trying to figure it out. Yeah.
I love this conversation. We are at time. I'm going to ask you to keep these conversations going outside. We are back in here for the new partners. You're going to be back in here at 10:45 to go through your orientation. And our breakout sessions start, if you want to advance the next slide, it kind of gives a little rundown of the agenda. Okay, we've got the partner pavilion out there as well. Go and see all of our spouse ambassador network partners. They're very helpful. And BAM Technologies is out there. They run all of our portals, the MSEP portals. So please go and talk with them. They get a lot of great ideas from you all. And so they implement quite a bit of that feedback. So go and see them as well. Next slide. Here we go. All right. We will head into our breakout sessions. If you haven't met your MSEP specialist already in person, I highly recommend doing that. It's really fun to get to see that person in person. So recommend going to find your person, and if you don't know your MSEP specialist, there is the registration table can help you out with that. And we will start breakout sessions at 10:45. New partner orientation is also in here, so come back in here if you're a new incoming partner and that's getting inducted in tomorrow. And then lunch at 12:15. So lunch is going to be in the same area that we were for breakfast, and or you could go on your own, but we hope to have you here for lunch. All right, thank you all so much.